following podcast is recorded and produced by Emerge, a media creators co-op, in affiliation with the network at bicbp-radio.com.
Hello, welcome back to the Next of Kin podcast. I'm your host, Rich, joined by my son, Christian. How are we doing today?
Good.
So we're here in the Emerge Studios, and did you spend your $8 and get a check mark today?
No.
Why not?
Because it's fucking useless. Yeah, that's why.
But you'll spend $8 on a coffee.
We're not doing this.
You're not doing
We're
that?
not doing
Okay,
this.
so he's all fired up about the check marks, but we're not going to be talking about check marks today. We're going to be talking about, and I apologize for you.
I'm a fucking degenerate Twitter user. It's the only social media I like because it's negative. And it's like
it's a lot of fun.
It's a
lot of fun seeing society collapse.
Yeah, it's just nonsense posts, arguments, and like negativity, which I kind of would like. All right.
Yeah. Anybody's using Twitter for your business, just get off there. Don't just go to other formats. Go to other things, like buy an ad in a newspaper.
And like
it's better. It's better for you.
It's the only place we can you can kind of cyberbully like companies. You can cyberbully like people that deserve it. Like it's it's
fun,
especially the CEO. Of
it's
the
a lot of
company.
fun.
Especially
it's like an amusement park.
He blew up a fucking rocket the other day.
Yeah,
and wanted people to be like, "We did a good job."
No, we did a good job.
I mean, he fucking he fucking obliterated the landing. Not the landing. The launch pad.
It was fine.
The
launch pad was destroyed.
Like he dug a hole in the ground, like with the jet.
All right, let's move on. So it's exciting times. So we're going to be talking. So I apologize if you're not a Star Trek fan. We're going to be talking a lot about Star Trek Picard today and the Star Trek universe in general. But we'll also close up with some Mando.
He's trying to start Starfleet,
season.
Bro.
What?
He's trying to start Starfleet. And this is what we got. This is the guy we got trying to start this. He's blowing up
It's Space
rockets.
Force.
What?
Space Force.
That doesn't exist.
Isn't that the fifth part?
Have they done anything with that?
I don't know.
Do they even have like an office?
Yes.
Do they?
They do.
Do they?
Yes.
Do we know that?
Yeah, it's on.
Have you seen them?
It's on Military Road.
Have you heard from them?
Yes. I was just talking to the chairman.
I think they just probably
put
like a sign on a building and then they put nobody in there. They're like, that's the space department.
To be honest, it's not anything that I care about. It's like all right, let's move on. So
the Space Force.
So do you want to talk about Mando first? Just wrap it up.
I don't know. Sure, why not?
So I mean, we obviously got the last episode of the season for Mando. The last two episodes kind of probably were the best two, probably in general, right?
I don't think any. Is there any good episodes this season?
Well, yeah, a lot of. Well, we're not super negative on Mando.
I'm not negative, but I'm
you're
also
not that
I'm not
negative on the season.
Either.
It was fine, right?
I mean, like,
if you gave,
I'm more frustrated with because all right, actually, I don't.
I'll say let me say it first.
No, I think there are bad episodes this season. I think there are bad episodes.
Well, I don't think they're all bad. But
no, I don't think they're all bad, but I think there are bad episodes.
There were bad episodes in this season, significantly more. Like, the only episode I didn't like last season, I think, was the spider one.
I don't even think that's like a. See,
like,
I think that episode, even being like the worst episode of last season, which I think it is, but not even because it's bad, just because I think it has the least going on.
Yes.
Like, I think that episode still has like better pacing,
right,
and like an overall coherentness.
Yeah, we already
than like most of the episodes this season.
Yeah.
Like this isn't a very coherent season by any stretch of the imagination.
And we're not going to we won't rehash all that because if you want to hear what we had to say about that, you can go on the 716 Attack Legion podcast, which is kind of a Star Wars it's a Star Wars podcast that we do in Emerge. We just taped a couple episodes the other day of that, and we just released those. So if you want to hear us really, I don't talk much on that show, but you and the panelists discuss a lot of Mando and everything's wrong with it. We won't rehash that here because we already kind of did it. But, I mean, it's just like if the first two seasons were an A, in an A-, this is like a B- season.
It's more that, it's more like that between season 1 and season 2. Like, it's like literally was like a year. Yes. Right? Like, it was literally, both fall. I think they were both fall, like 2019, then it was like 2020, I don't even know. Either way, something like that. Like, and like, like it wasn't like there was a lot of. I know that Pedro Pascal, like I think, was probably delayed a little bit because of that, but also like I don't think he was on set at all.
No, I don't think he was
this season.
Very much.
Like I don't think he was on set in the slightest. So
I don't know for sure where he was.
But like it seemed like there was. It seemed like they were like almost forced to not go anywhere. Like it was like there was like I don't know. Like there seemed to be a lot of things working against this. In a lot of ways, like this like the cinematography seems to be weaker. Like than this season, I think by like a significant deal. Like there are some sequences where like just feel like for instance at the end of episode 6, like when they're in the when Bo-Katan's fighting like Axe. Like that's it's a nice fight. Like the effects are fine, but like the lighting in that scene is like there's one scene where Axe is just on the ground and the sunlight is just like shining into his face. And it's natural.
Is that the one that you said was filmed in a park?
Yeah, it's filmed in like a park.
A fan film.
Like it's in like L.A. Like it's in like
they went out in like High Park or someplace like and
like the angles aren't very and even like.
It didn't seem like.
And you're just looking at like Din Djarin's costume, just like in normal like sun-baked light, like without like any sort of like professional. Like,
there were some episodes. I mean, there were a lot of great moments. It was
always
like
that,
but there was just a lot of average seasons, and I feel like some of it was rushed. And
I think
the
music
I just
was
don't know.
Slightly weaker than usual, which again wasn't. It's not like obviously the pre-existing themes were. Ludwig Göransson, but it was the guy who's been working with him a little bit. I don't think anything was bad necessarily, but
it just seemed like it kind of seemed like they just kind of got through it, and I don't know why.
But I think my point is like it's been 2.5 years, like or it's been like it's been over 2 years to produce like an episode a season, and like this has less going on than like the Mando like the Take Back Mando plot had less like
Mandalore.
Yeah, Take Back Mandalore plot had like less meat on its bones than like either of the first 2 seasons.
That you know what
not even characters.
Can I mention that? Like, and again, I know less about that universe than most people, and I just felt like that seemed too easy.
No, it was very easy.
It seemed like it was way too easy.
They didn't even deal with the intercept. We didn't see them deal with the ties like on screen even. Like,
no,
which is like okay, like all right, like that's great.
I mean, I did really enjoy seeing.
I don't think any scenes that
I did enjoy seeing air combat. With soldiers,
it
was
cool.
very Clone Wars-y.
That's the thing. I can't.
There were a lot of things that salvaged the season because visually there were a lot of really good things, and I did like a lot of the character development. But
like from what's actually there, it's just that like when it's all put together, it doesn't like hit very much. And there's an idea that okay, well this isn't bad. Like it just should have been more, and like could have been better. And almost every scene could have been better. Almost every scene could have been like something else that would have been like a bit more like epic. Even the whole like way that they set up this last 2 episodes could have been a much more like unique scenario than just like it felt very like simple Mandalorian episode plot where we go into the base and take it to win. Like that's a little bit too simple for retaking all of Mandalore.
Yeah, like I would agree with that. I would think that like that if that was like episode 6 and then there was a huge thing for episode 8 where they had to fight off because like we don't understand even like where are the ships, like the big ships. Like I'm assuming that that Moff Gideon had a big ship too. Where's his big ship? You know what I mean?
Well, I guess we don't know that, but still. Yeah.
Well, he doesn't just have TIE fighters.
I mean, if he is at a base, like he had that was like he didn't need like a TIE. You didn't need a big ship for to hold the TIEs. Like the TIEs were in like the hangar.
I know, but it just seems like he would have more resources than that.
I will say that is one thing that I'm hoping because we're gonna get into the other.
Well,
we're gonna get into the other warlords soon.
Yeah,
and like nothing within like the Gideon thing has been like proper warlord level stuff yet. I think they got close with this latest episode,
right?
But like not that it like made sense that like Gideon was kind of hopping around with like a smaller like a light cruiser because it's like all right, it's not a whole Star Destroyer. It's less of like a target from like New Republic. Right. But even in like old canon, there were like what's it called? They had
whatever
Imperials that held space.
Right.
Like it wasn't just like every Imperial was like rats hiding. You know what I mean? Like there were actively enough Imperials, which made sense because like the fucking Galactic Empire was like 25,000 like Imperial Star Destroyers strong. You know what I mean? Like, that's how big the fucking, like, Empire is, like, in Star Wars. So, no, the Rebels didn't beat them in a year, like, in, like, the old canon.
Well, and the problem is in the new canon, it seems like that's what it is. Like,
well, the new canon...
or they all left and they went into the...
In the new canon, up until
they just left.
Changing now, and they're changing significantly now.
Right.
But for Force Awakens, before any of the Mandoverse exists, which is, again, the only thing that's filled in the blanks really here, besides some weird other sequel stuff, like, it's a year. Like, they fight the Empire for, like, a year. Like, after, like, the Battle of Endor into the Battle of Jakku, which is, like, the planet where you find Rey on with, like, that's why there's all those crash Star Destroyers and stuff. Right. And that's, like, where the Empire makes, like, their last stand for some reason, which doesn't make any sense, before, like, a decent amount of the ships there go into the unknown reaches and like become the First Order
and
eventually.
Stay there for 3 years.
But like now, obviously, it's changed to then like so not everyone left.
Right. Okay.
But
back
way,
to the Warlords. Let's back to the
Yes.
Warlords. Like I feel like they're trying to set up almost like the Warlords are almost like they're almost kind of picking up like how the Rebellion worked, where they're cells and they're kind of isolated. And we finally they start talking about Thrawn, and you know obviously there's a bunch of announcements at Star Wars Celebration, which we already talked about last week. But so I don't know. Like I'm wondering if we're actually getting a lot. I'm wondering if the Warlord stuff is going to end up more to do with Ahsoka show than Mando show.
I think it's like a decent amount. I think it's all three.
Yeah,
because I think like,
but I feel the bulk of that's going to be Ahsoka.
No, but I think
less of that's
going
to be Mando.
Because I think a lot of those other characters are going to like end up showing up in other things now.
Sure.
Because like I said, they already have written season 4 of Mando, if I remember correctly. So I imagine, I think 3 and 4 were written kind of around the same time, and might even be like more of an extended like thing in a way. But
well, you kind of have to because
some will show up in like Skeleton Crew maybe, but Skeleton Crew is weird because like I think Skeleton Crew might mention that like pirate empire that they talked about like in one episode.
We know we got the one guy with the wrinkly face who's going to be in that show.
Yeah, the one.
I'll see you in the next show.
Which is so stupid. That was like
Mando.
Yeah, that. But Ahsoka's going to be dealing with like Thrawn, I think, and then Mando might have like one or two different of those other guys to deal with, like if they have smaller. But I hope we get to
when
see
he's not sitting on his front porch.
Yeah, but I hope we get to see like some actual like are the rebels like did the New Republic like take out anyone? Did they try at all?
They're all dead.
Like, cause it's so like nonsensical.
I don't know.
Like,
I don't know. We'll see.
Because like,
the problem is,
like,
I feel
like how many ships did are we saying the rebels like took?
Well, whatever they took in a year.
In like from Endor to Jakku, like how many like realistically in 300 days did like again, don't get me wrong. Within canon, we know of a couple situations that actually make sense. Like we know of like a couple raids of them like destroying Superstar Destroyers, and of them like even like capturing a couple. Like they captured like a few of like the empires and like even converted them over to like the Republic at a certain point. But like no, it just doesn't make sense. It's like the rebels didn't double in size all of a sudden like the second they won the war. Like it's
my assumption's always been like that. Once they destroyed the second Death Star and the Emperor's dead, that more races would start helping out. But let me finish. Let me finish. But they can't because it's not like they have a fleet. Because if they had a fleet, the Emperor already destroyed it. Yeah. So it's not like some race of beings like the Greedo planet, where Greedo. Let me finish. Like that, they had a defense force in hiding that. Like now we can go help and fight. So it would take those planets like at least a couple of years to build a fleet to join the New Republic, or even the New Republic has to build a fleet of themselves, unless they're just taking. So like
planet with an individual military,
like
was
the practicality of it.
Imperial was militarized. Yes,
right.
Like
so. Maybe a lot of people defected.
Which I just want these groups. I just want some of these people to be like bigger, because like even Gideon never had he had resources. Don't get me wrong. Like he had it was cool. Light Cruiser was cool and his base was cool, but like we never got to see what Gideon Warlords and the expanded universe had fleets. Like they had some fleets of Star Destroyers. Like they had resources. Like they didn't just
Well, that's my point. That's why I asked you. Did he have another ship somewhere?
I don't know.
Because he was just stuck there. He taking a TIE fighter, like somewhere around, or whatever TIE fighter he had before.
That's what I'm saying. It's just like
there were some really. I mean, I'm not. I don't want to shit on the season too much because I did enjoy most of the season, except I just felt like there could have been more, and that's kind of like.
I'm just still not satisfied with the New Republic as like. Like even though with
the New Republic is not well thought out. Although this version of the New Republic is better than the New Republic in the movies.
Slightly, that's just because it has any bit of explaining at all. They didn't even.
There's no explanation of how the New Republic works in the New Republic. There's no explanation of those things. So
no,
all right. Well, let's focus on.
Wonder what the explanation ended up becoming. The explanation for the sequel trilogies, like for the lore and the world building,
that nobody wanted a centralized government.
Just becomes like justification to allow that movie to use nostalgic aesthetics from the original trilogy. They just built in-universe reasons for like the same aesthetics to be present.
Sure, I agree. For
like which for entirely for unoriginal nostalgia purposes. So
like the government seemed like they were the rebellion, like immediately.
Yeah, so like they were like even like fucking say like for instance like the separatists like are still a part. Or I imagine like some of them are a part of the New Republic, or some of them aren't. Or even there was even an idea of the New Republic that much of the galaxy didn't want to join the New Republic, so there was a lot more independent areas and stuff. Like,
well, that's what I said about they didn't want to They didn't want to centralize government.
This all done with me because I'm like, okay, like you can't have it both ways. You can't demilitarize like the central government because you only are decentralizing the central government. Or demilitarizing that because of like fear of that government. Right. But if there's fear of that government, then it's only natural that those same planets that wanted that central government demilitarized militarized themselves.
Yes.
Like to prevent it from happening. That's how like any bit of history.
But even that would have taken time.
Back and forth like push and pull work.
But that would have taken time to expel any imperial presence on their planet.
That's what I'm saying, and again, the Empire takes over within 4 days, like at the beginning of The Last Jedi,
right?
Like, and they just because none of the planets have defense fleets, basically, besides like Octu, which had the only Republic, like not Octu, the fucking planet they blew up, which had like the only Republic defense fleet apparently, was orbiting that planet. So
okay. All right. Anything else on Mando?
I'm never going to take an opportunity to not shit on the world building behind the scenes of those.
Okay. Films. Well, anything? What else you want to talk about with Mando? There was some good stuff. I mean, I thought a lot of the stuff that they did with Grogu and Mando was good.
They gave him a little bit. Yeah, Grogu finally had something to do this episode.
Yeah. I mean, I like that. I thought that they kind of wasted
he used his powers well.
I thought the evolution of the powers was good. I thought they didn't do enough with Bo.
I thought this is one of Bo's weaker episodes. Weird.
Yeah, in general. I mean, in this last episode.
I thought the lightsaber fight sucked.
I liked.
Not the lightsaber fight.
I mean, we already talked about the fight a little bit. I mean, the fight was fine.
I just don't get why there's not like more nuance and more like work ethic being put into the that used to be Star Wars used to be like not that like the original trilogy fights are like the best choreographed thing in the world, but they're very purposeful. They're intentional. Like you're telling a story with the fight. Same thing with the prequels. Like the prequels are highly technical, but they're also telling like a story, like and that's narrative at the same time. Like
right.
Like Maul's fight tells a story while you're watching it. Like like same with like Dooku and like in Obi-Wan Anakin at the end especially. None of that, like the sequels don't have that. This fight is just like two people kind of like whacking sticks into each other for the most part. There's some better moments, but like, I don't know. I'm just
it doesn't strike me that
the choreography. Like, what is going on?
Moff Gideon should be good at fighting anyway. Like he just had a mech suit. Like that's all he had.
Star Wars should be associated with fucking good choreography. Like it should be. Like why did that lose that from the prequels? Why did one of the only positive things like that was like at the time accepted from the prequels not like move on in the franchise, except into cartoons?
Yep.
Like because literally that's it. Like the best lightsaber lightsaber fights in the franchise like exist in Star Wars: The Clone Wars. Like beyond, like since the prequels, like literally, like the best ones I can name off the top of my head are Ahsoka, Maul, like Mo Capture, and Maul, Savage v Palpatine. Like that's it. Like it's those two.
Right.
And maybe like Vader or Ahsoka. Like.
Yeah. Well, I do like I
know people like Vader, Obi-Wan as well.
I like that fight a lot because I like it's not your favorite, but it's a good fight.
Yeah,
and there's a lot of cool stuff in there because
it deeper.
Well, it could be deeper, but they also did a lot where like it became a lot more force. The force was involved, used much more than just the guys using their skills with a lightsaber, which I thought was good. So, is Gideon dead?
I don't know. Maybe. Fuck knows.
I'm going to say that wasn't even really the real version of him. Or there's a clone version of him that's still going to exist.
I don't think they do. Do they even know?
Well, they should the next season.
Does Favreau know?
Well, that's yeah. So, and there's a lot of like obviously there's some cool stuff with Grogu kind of like connecting with the Mythosaur. So we're definitely going to get Grogu riding the Mythosaur at some point.
Yeah.
Or he's going to help Mando ride it.
This just feels like
they could ride it together. I could see that.
It's such an like I don't think I like dislike any of the episodes. I don't know. I don't even know. I'm just like flabbergasted.
Again, I don't hate the season.
It's just like
if the first two seasons were an A and an A minus, let's say, to give them random ratings, this was a B minus. It wasn't a D. It wasn't an F. It maybe isn't even a C minus.
It's just such an anticlimax.
It was there.
It's just such an anticlimax.
Yeah, and that's why I'm giving it. That's why I'm giving it overall a B minus. Like it was,
especially because
there were some really cool moments that I really liked.
Especially because it's like I think it's more frustrating because like okay, we were going good. Like they had kind of made things work for 2 seasons of Mando, and then like a wrench got thrown into it, and went like a year and a half without like the better thing that was like kind of winning Star Wars fans back on some level. Right. You got Boba, which like has its moments, but like is not a good show except for like when it abandons being Boba and like just turns into the Mandalorian again.
Right.
Which again, like that's what I'm saying. Like those 2 episodes of Boba, which are essentially just Mandalorian episodes. Like none of the episodes this season are even as good as either one of those. I'm not even talking about the fan. I'm not even talking about the fan service one.
I don't even disagree with that
because each of those episodes are entirely different. Right. Like because again, people do criticize the Mandalorian a bit for like its over reliance on like this character showing up or this Easter egg or like yada yada yada. Which that's just the type of vibe it is. But like. There were 2 type of Mandalorian episodes in that Boba season. There was like a normal one where it was like the 2 like well let's see, but where you were on that one like Halo planet first, and then you had a Mando front, and then you had like a build the ship in the second, and that's like a very classic Mando episode. That's one of the better episodes. That's a
great episode.
That's one of the best Mando centric episodes there is. Like people, I've heard this like dozens of times from like different like reaction channels. It's like I could watch Din Djarin just sit and work on like or Djarin Din apparently that's his name now. It's like I could just watch him sit and like work on his ship like all day, and you could like it's entertaining. Like
I think that's why they're kind of bringing the next season back to a little smaller thing. Mm-hmm. Like this season was supposed to be bigger in scope. I think this season is going to be a little bit more side mission with some overall plot.
Yeah, and then even when you went down Nostalgia Avenue in episode 5 or whatever of Boba Fett or 6, I think it might be,
which was a very good episode.
Like it's a great episode. Like we're just still
it's
good,
important
even
too because we need
because
it's not just about Mando too. It's also about Grogu and what the story is.
And that episode's sick. Like so, they're 2 very very different episodes within the scheme of the Mandalorian, and like none of the episodes this season I think even come close to like topping either.
So, I think that's why again though I would call Mando
and that's I think a sin. So as much as people don't like the Book of Boba Fett. So as much as people don't, I'm sorry, I'm being a little loud.
No, you're just interrupting.
Sorry, my bad.
Nope, that's not a big deal. I'll get to it.
As much as like people seem to like, or like this isn't not that bad. I'm like, okay, well, the Book of Boba Fett, which I think is widely considered the worst of the Disney Plus shows, has better episodes than any episode of this season of Mando.
Yeah. Again, we talked about this before. So again, just from a overall interpretation of it. Mando's seasons 1 and 2 are both A's, A minuses.
Yeah.
Book of Boba Fett's a B minus, but because it's got those 2 like Mando 2.1 episodes.
I hate it more than that. But.
Like okay, fine, it's a C.
Yeah.
But it goes. But what I said was, but it gets saved because it's got those 2 episodes.
Yes.
Like Mando saves the Boba Fett season.
Episodes, yes.
So without it is a C. It's even a C minus. Yes. Might even be a D. But if you throw in the Boba Fett 2.0, I mean the Mando 2.0 or 2.1 or whatever you want to call it, it's 2.5 or lots of jokes.
I don't know
for
if
it.
like that was like
that helps the season out. But I agree. I think that those 2 episodes, the Mando episodes in Boba Fett, are better than probably any individual episode in season 3. But there's a lot of good things in season 3, but it's too spread out, and there's too many bad things that are like. This kind of make.
I don't know what they should have done. They should have, I don't know, and I know this is like probably down to like. You know what you want? Oh, this just popped in my head. You know what? Like why? Because weirdly enough, like I think the season of Mando has elements of like that Rangers of the New Republic show in it too. Which is weird because so they're trying to stuff something else in, but at the same time, it also feels like nothing's happening.
I have a theory
so
about
they're shoving stuff in from other things that weren't meant to be here.
I have a theory on that. Want to hear my theory?
In a second, but I want to see my point.
It ties right into your theory.
Like
your
so it's a little, I don't even know how to explain that because there are things that seem like they shouldn't be present in the season that are almost setting up something else or should have been present in something else. But also the season still feels very light and there's still not a lot to like sink into. But whereas, and the same thing with Boba. Like Boba was very surface level too, and there wasn't much to sink into beyond the surface as well. So I'm like, why did they not just like incorporate the Boba stuff, into like why didn't they just not like? I know like it's probably because they wanted to like get something out because Mando wasn't going to come out for 2 years because Pedro couldn't do like as much or he was filming The Last of Us or whatever, scheduling conflict, whatever. But like, I just feel like, because there was like, I mean, think of some of the episodes of the season where like nothing happened. Like the first episode of the season, which is a recap. Like, I like the first episode, but it's a recap.
Because a lot of people didn't watch Mando.
Yeah, that you don't need because
Boba.
Yeah. So imagine though if instead you have like the first couple episodes of the season are the Mando Boba episodes.
Right.
And then you go like and have like a Boba Fett like finale is more towards
we've already
the middle.
We've talked about this a bunch of times already. So the problem is they didn't know what to do with the Boba Fett season. They didn't have enough episodes. So that's how the Mando stuff came in. Mm-hmm. And I think they probably recognized it was weak. So then they get to the Mando season, and they'd canceled, here's what I think, here's my theory on what happened with that. They had Rangers of the New Republic episodes written, and they were getting ready to start production.
Yeah.
Then they decided not to do that show for lots of reasons. And then they had this production. No, let me finish. They had this production work done. So guess what they did? They took those stories and scripts and turned them into Mando episodes, and then just changed the characters. Shows do this shit all the time. Mm-hmm. Shows do this shit all the time. There's a bunch, like when Next Generation came out, we're going to get Star Trek in a couple minutes. They had a bunch of episodes that had originally been written for a Star Trek show that never happened. And they just literally pulled those episodes in and dropped them in over the course of the first couple seasons. And I think what happened is they had a bunch of things that they had done that were supposed to be part of Rangers of the New Republic, and they just even the X-Wing pilot. Yeah. I think a lot of that
he was going to be on that.
That was going to be on that, and I think that was how they fixed it. I think they said, "Well, we already did this stuff, so let's use it instead of wasting all this production stuff on it." All right, what are your hopes moving on?
That they make a coherent story.
Okay. What are you? I mean, we've already talked about this, but what are your hopes for Ahsoka?
Oh, that it's better than this.
Yeah.
That's been like that. It actually has like a real plot and like actual characters like in it. Besides, like, because here's what characters do we meet and understand this season?
Not enough, and I think part of it is because you didn't.
Like none. You have Bo-Katan, who we've known for over a decade.
Yep.
Like and from last season, we have Grogu and Din, both of which are like weirdly not the main thing in this season
in their own show,
but also nobody else is the main thing either besides maybe Bo.
I agree.
But but none of but there's no other characters that didn't get introduced.
Well, I don't want to go back to that. I want to focus on what do you think is going to happen with Ahsoka. What are you most? Are you worried that they're going to do too much with the Rebels cast?
No, because I think the entire writing,
or is it done better?
I think we've now proven that like the entire like the most of the good writing from Mando comes from Dave Filoni.
Right.
I think we've now like almost proven.
And
that.
he didn't write enough of this season.
Yeah, he's like the 2 best episodes are episode 2 on Mandalore, and then episode 7, the first part of the 2-episode arc, and they're the 2 better paced, better. Although there are some dumb things in 7 as well, like the big like monster.
Yeah, we already talked.
But like we've talked about that. Yeah. Like, but for the most part though. Like that, for Ahsoka, I said this on the other podcast. I'm expecting that show to be maybe like not the best in like maybe a technical filmmaking sense at all times, just because like Filoni was an animator, then he was a animation director, and then all that sort of thing. And now he's
directing those episodes.
He's directing some of them. Okay. Yes, and I don't think he's directing all of them, but he's directing at least a good portion.
Did he direct the episode with Ahsoka in season 2?
Did he what?
Did he direct the episode with Ahsoka in season 2 of Mando?
Yes.
He directed that one.
Yes.
And visually, I love that episode.
That is a very good visual episode, but it's also like it's one. So he had to like he got to focus on like that nailing that one episode.
Well, let's see. I mean, I'm super excited because
is Filoni the fucking Luke Skywalker episode too?
I think he did.
He might be the Luke Skywalker episode too.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure.
So again, that's what, like I know Filoni can hit me with throw his emotions. That is undeniable.
The cast of this show is also significantly. I want to say I think it's going to be significantly better in terms of like I don't mind Carl Weathers,
about the plot.
But Carl Weathers isn't a great actor. Like he's great, it's cool, but like
he fits in Star Wars.
But the character, what's her face, who's playing Ahsoka, is a tremendous actress, and she's nails it already. Like she's nails it.
I'm slightly worried for
we
the
know
plot.
we know that Mikkelsen, who's playing Thrawn, even if we don't see him right away, whenever he's there, he's going to be awesome. And I feel like we're pretty excited about who's playing Sabine and you know,
I mean, there's
and
just
Hera,
a lot on its shoulders,
and we're getting Chopper. I mean, and we're going to get Zeb.
I'm just nervous though because like I don't trust Disney Lucasfilm. I trust Dave Filoni. I like Ahsoka a lot, and I think it's going to be good, like against all odds. But like I just always have to be like, okay, like it's like bringing Ahsoka back. It's like a Clone Warsy thing. It's like a Rebels sequel. It's also like helping to bring back like Heir to the Empire into the canon. So like it is a fucking.
That's why I think it's going to be
of challenges. To
I think that based on what we've seen, I'm pretty excited about this. So
I've been impressed so far. I'm happy for it. I'm just nervous. I'm justifiably nervous. Okay. Just given everything.
Well, that's fine. That's fair to be nervous. I don't have a problem.
And I don't know. And I'm worried. Like we don't know like how they're going to approach Heir to the Empire.
I don't think
we don't know.
Yeah, I don't think we're going to see. I don't think we're going to get the Rebels like cast in there for the entire episode,
or like how different.
I think I don't think everything's going to get accomplished in one season.
No, we get multiple seasons of the show. They've said. So
I mean, we have to figure out how she gets from where she was to where she's going. Like I think there's a lot that's got to happen in this. We're assuming we talked about that she's probably right now with Luke, right?
Probably not. No, Ahsoka no.
She left when Grogu left?
I think Ahsoka left when Grogu left.
Okay.
Yeah.
So we're not getting...
she was leaving off.
So, okay. Well, whatever. And that comes out in August?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So,
we're
going to move on to something that again, Next of Kin is the name of the show. And there's a lot of things we've talked about over the years that I was not necessarily a huge fan of or wouldn't have known to be a fan of until Christian introduced them to me. One of the things that we were talking about today when we were walking around the mall was that I'm pretty proud of the fact that I got you to kind of appreciate the universe of Star Trek. And you've watched Picard pretty regularly with me. Picard just finished. We're gonna spend some time talking about Picard really quick before we get into that. They announced and showed us the trailer for Strange New Worlds, which is the Captain Pike show,
which I think we talked about last year.
Which we talked about a couple times. The trailer is amazing. I'm super excited and impressed with the improvements.
And they managed to tease a lot of stuff in that trailer without like giving it a lot away too, right? Because there was some mirror universe stuff you said. There's some things that I see for sure. There's definitely the trial of number 1. You see them ringing a bell, which is analogous to Starfleet trials are like a big thing.
The trial's going to be a big thing, and it's going to really bring back. Let me tell you because
I'm asking a question though. I mean, like, within the history of Star Trek, like the captains or like different characters going on trial is like a.
There's a lot of some of the best episodes of Star Trek are courtroom dramas.
Okay, that's all I'm asking.
Original series, Spock's trial. Kirk and Spock both go on trial. Scotty goes on trial. Worf goes on trial. Data goes on trial. Like there's a great episode, Measure of a Man, where they have a court case to determine if Data is property or if he is a sentient being, and whether is he a slave or is he a person? Mm-hmm. And that's one of the most important episodes of Star Trek ever, especially because Riker has to prosecute, because that's just the way the military justice system works. Mm-hmm. And there's a great speech in that thing. And there's even a trial of Picard, too. So some of the best episodes are when we do courtroom drama stuff. And so we're going to get a courtroom drama scene with, I think, number 1. I'm hoping they bring back Kirk's lawyer, a different actor playing Samuel T. Cogley, attorney at law. I think they're going to do that. They're going to give us some fan service there. There's definitely a scene where Spock is drinking blood wine with Klingons that look like Klingons, not Discovery, dumbass Klingons. They look like Klingons from Deep Space Nine, Next Generation in the movies. They look like the right kind of, even the cup looks right. Like, there's definitely an expansion of the characters that we have. There's a new character, Carol Kane. I think she's taking over as the engineer, the chief engineer, because the other guy died, which was a shame because I really liked the blind guy. Remember the blind engineer died?
Oh, he passed away. He died at the end of the show.
The character got killed on the show. Right, so I think they're bringing in the actor. I was like, they're bringing in Carol Kane or whatever her name is. I think she's going to be the new chief engineer. She's kind of comedic, which I think is going to be kind of a Scotty feel. Mm-hmm. And then I also think that we're going to be I lost my train of thought. We're definitely going to see the Captain Kirk is going to be back in this. So I think we're going to kind of see some. There's so many things going on. The Vulcan harp we even see. So there's a lot of things that I think that are going to continue to do. And I love the show because it is supposed to be very kind of give you that throwback to the original series. Mm-hmm. Where it's like it's each episode is its own episode. Yeah. They're not one-offs because every episode is a one-off. There probably will be an overlying theme going through the season, but that comes out June 15th.
Kirk's supposed to know what's his name, right? The captain.
We don't know that. We don't have an answer to that in canon.
Okay, so I guess we know now, I guess, but like they met like in the first season.
There are some complaints about that because Kirk talks about on the original series that he met Captain Pike when he took over control of the Enterprise, but now we've already thrown that can out the window. So there were some criticisms that Captain Kirk should not have met.
Gotcha. It's they don't have like the movie type thing.
They don't. They're not blaming it on alternative universe. But so there. I don't. Either way, I think most people really liked Strange New Worlds. They got an incredible cast, and it comes out June 15th. Picard just wrapped up this week. 3 seasons. I think most fans will tell you it took them to the 3rd season to really nail it.
Yeah, to get really good, yeah.
This season really was the last generation.
We liked last season.
The next generation. I liked last season a lot, too.
But not every fan was the biggest on it.
But this season, they went all in on that this was going to be the reunion of the next next generation cast. And it was done gradually, which was cool.
Yeah, they didn't just pull the trigger right away.
We didn't even get them all together until the end of the 6th episode.
Yeah.
They weren't all together on screen at the same time until they sat around a table at the end of the 6th episode, and everybody was super. And that's really, I think, when everybody kind of really started to watch the show and almost went back and rewatched it because then they heard that the cast was all back. So they introduced Beverly first. Then we got Worf. And then we got Geordi, and then I think we got Deanna. We had
Riker immediately.
We had Riker immediately. Riker was right away.
Right, yeah, Riker's always going to be next to Picard. But
yeah, I just thought they nailed it. It was a great story, which a lot of concepts and things that had been brought in over the years in Star Trek that maybe never got completely finished up. Mm-hmm. Some themes from from some of the movies like Insurrection, there were some issues there. They brought back, obviously the Dominion, which was they brought back specifically.
Well, it's like stragglers from the Dominion and from the Changelings.
It really wasn't the Dominion.
Big bads
the Dominion was the actual whole empire. The only characters are the actual Changelings.
And they fought wars against Starfleet fought wars against both those. Right? Or do they have a Borg?
The Changelings are the leaders of the Dominion. Oh, you mean the Borg versus?
Yeah, I mean they fought 2 wars. They fought a war versus the Changelings and a war versus the Borg, right?
Yes.
So there's almost like the stragglers from like the 2 enemies of that era
team up.
Like, and then like the people like have to do one last mission of, which again like is fitting given that the end of like this episode, the finale, they're like seemingly are setting up like which we're going to talk about I assume at some point.
Right. Well, I mean, one of the things.
What I'm saying is like it's like the heroes like obviously from that era from like 20 years ago whenever those initial like well I guess longer than that those like initial like shows came out.
Right.
Like when the Next Generation, Deep Space, Voyager, like
right.
Mainly the first two.
Right.
Like these get like the main cast from then gets to come back and like finish off like the last of that threat.
Sure.
Before the next like era begins.
Right. It's 30. Yeah, it kind of gets you some closure on
like
the Borg and stuff. So 35 years since Picard was assimilated by the Borg and Wolf 359, and which leads to a lot of those themes of Picard, like was he a hero or was he a villain, like come out in this, with Captain Shaw kind of really emulating how Sisko felt about Picard on Deep Space Nine, which he gets over almost immediately. I like that they did that. I like that they, there's a lot of those kinds.
Space?
What?
Picard was on Deep Space?
Only in the first episode.
Oh, okay.
He was there for the pilot because the Enterprise is the first ship at Deep Space Nine. Well, not the first ship, but one of the first ships. And you got to remember that's how they transferred O'Brien.
I got you.
From the Enterprise. Like
he gets off the Enterprise.
Yeah,
and
like
goes
the only person from Star Trek from Next Generation that's in that episode that we see is Picard. We don't see any of the other cast.
Gotcha.
We only see Picard, and it's like literally there's one scene where O'Brien's beaming down to Deep Space Nine. He's leaving the Enterprise for the last time, and Picard and O'Brien have a nice scene. Picard has two nice scenes with Sisko. One at the beginning when Sisko's very angry, and a lot of his healing starts in that first episode. And at the end of the episode, they kind of shake hands, and it's all forgiven and everything. He's over it, so to speak, because of what happens with the wormhole. But anyway, they definitely did a lot of things that bringing in the changelings, the leftover changelings that got trapped in the gamma, the Alpha Quadrant, and then were captured by like the Starfleet and Federation intelligence and experimented on is pretty bad. Like, and that leads to corruption within the Empire, within the Federation. And I like that because the Federation does lose its way in Star Trek towards the end of Next Generation into Deep Space Nine. Voyager, they never touch on it because we don't really see the Federation because they're on the other side of the galaxy for most of the show. So I think it's good that they kind of address that. And then some of it turned out because the changelings were slowly infiltrating and ruining Starfleet from within. So I thought that they did very well with that. I mean, that was a great kind of and that they were being helped with the Borg all along. And it's nice that Worf was the first one to kind of find a changeling and then reference Odo.
Yeah.
Not by name. He's like, a changeling, a man of great honor, because the actor has now passed away. And so I think that there were so many cool nods that they did a great job balancing fan service and new stories and finishing up stories.
Like I said, like the younger characters that were introduced, the newer characters this season that do.
Yeah, talk about the new characters.
Well, there's not too many, but there's like three. There's mainly only three. There's like obviously they keep in terms of previous what?
Yeah, no, sorry. Not my fault. Never mind. Go ahead.
In terms of like the previous like seasons, the only person that's like two characters have stayed around, and that's Rafi, who's like was introduced in Picard as well, right?
The first season,
and she's like an academy person, like a superior, not superior, but like
she was working in the. They set up that she worked in the academy for a while, but then she ended up going into like intelligence for a while. She's been in.
Well, she quit, then she went back, then she went to intelligence.
Yeah, and then she's been doing like covert work. But she had to do some really questionable things, and that's why. And her handler turns out to be Worf, which is really cool. But then at the end, they do some really cool stuff. So people realize that she really was a hero, and she wasn't. What she doing wasn't bad. That it was all her cover. They had her pretend to be a disgraced officer so that they could use her to infiltrate, like crime syndicates.
Yep. So she was cool.
7 and 9's great.
She has probably the least. She doesn't have too much to do this season.
Like in the
she's
first
kind
of
episodes, she does, but once the next gen characters kick in, it's mainly their show.
Yep.
Which it should be, I think. Besides 7 is actually kind of a little bit more on the side in the beginning.
She's considered the co-star of the show.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah.
I mean, she's been in all 3 seasons. She's been cool in all 3 seasons. Obviously, she's the best thing that people remember from Voyager. You said,
yeah.
But I think she's very good in the final episode. And then even like they work in terms of new characters like introduced this season. There's I would say 3 main ones.
There's 3 main ones.
There's Captain Shaw, who's like a very like who kind of is from like he's younger, like he's 30s, 40s.
He's supposed to be a throwback to the generation from the 80s and the 90s.
Yeah, and he's like very let's see like his
By
Picard and like Riker are like kind of like being a little bit more sneaky at the beginning to try to figure out the mission that they're on and whatever. And they get on the Titan, like which was Riker's ship, and now is commanded by like what Shaw, essentially. Shaw. I think that's his name, right?
Commander Shaw, Captain Shaw.
And that character is like very. He was an engineer, like during one of the earlier movies in Star Trek where they fight the Borg. Or something.
No. When he's talking about being what he experiences goes back to Wolf 359 when he was on a ship. And he's an engineer, and basically everybody else around him dies, and he survives just randomly, and he deals with that survivor's guilt So he really hates the Borg, and he hates Picard.
No, but it was something Picard did.
Well, Picard was assimilated, and so he basically they used his knowledge of the Federation to destroy most of Starfleet at Wolf 359. So that's why there's animosity towards Picard.
But there's also like this level of like he talks about it's beyond that though because he's talking about you and Riker running around the galaxy like that sort of thing. Like he viewed them as like irresponsible and that they were too gung ho almost. And this is a more calm era.
The consequences of Picard. Got to remember Q. The Federation should have not in the original series was not supposed to meet the Borg so soon in timeline. And then Q basically does not like the conceit of Picard, who represents humanity in his mind. So he throws
a challenge.
He throws the Enterprise into the Delta Quadrant, into like the Borg, essentially. And then he sends them back, and then the Borg now know about the Federation, so the Borg start to head and start to build their transwarp conduits into the Alpha Quadrant because they want to assimilate the Federation. But they shouldn't have done that so early. So there's a lot of fan theories that was kind of mentioned by Shaw that a lot of people realize now that the Borg would have never been around if it wasn't for Picard and his like cowboy antics.
Yeah,
so that's why he doesn't really like Riker and Picard so much. Go ahead.
I don't know. I think that's kind of...
Well, I mean, they introduced Geordi LaForge's daughter as a pilot.
We have the child characters, the legacy characters.
The legacy children of legacy characters.
Children of legacy characters. Yeah, we have the less important to the story, but pretty decent role, especially in the earlier 5 episodes, was Geordi's daughter.
Yep.
She actually is probably gets more screen time than him, maybe.
Yeah, I would agree with that. Till Geordi came...
Geordi's the last one to show up.
Well, technically, Deanna Troy's kind of the last
those
one.
two, but she was in a previous season.
She was, and I think that's why they balanced it out. Yeah, I think you're right. That's probably how they kind of felt it was fair.
Yeah, she got to be in season 1, so,
right,
and for like an episode or 2. So,
right.
But yeah, and then otherwise you get Picard's son, who's very good, and that's good. A hard, and I felt like that was like hard to do. I'm trying to think of something else where
you have to play the child of a legendary character.
It does happen a lot.
Yes.
But I'm trying to remember.
And most of the time they suck.
I'm trying to remember instances where it hasn't worked. But it usually doesn't. Where they just
I'm trying to think of instances where it has worked.
I'm thinking of like Indiana Jones' son. No,
not good.
Doesn't work.
No, I agree.
Yeah, it just a lot of the time it just really doesn't end up it either ends up that they're too similar, or they got to force, or something's forced to cause either friction with their father or something. But no, but this one was he was different enough, but he also had qualities of both parents kind of an equal amount.
Yep. And I want to say that the acting ability, the casting, and the braveness to make the character so you compared to me kind of reminds you of what we would imagine a young Captain Kirk would be like.
He's a little more gun ho because he's not Starfleet. He's he's been out doing humanitarian work.
Yep.
Like with his mother, like on a random ship, like just in the wherever out in the galaxy, places that Starfleet doesn't go to. Like, so he has all this extra insight. He has humanity, and then he has like this weird like level of Picardness that like which is interesting because he's never met Picard. Like up until like he's like 20 in this, I think, right?
Early 20s.
He's like in his early 20s. Yeah.
No, I mean I think that the actor is set up to really take.
Yeah, but he's charming. He's like entertaining.
He's
like,
funny.
He's captivating. He gets your attention.
He's a real nice mix, and I'm glad you said that earlier because he's a real nice mix between Picard in terms of his idealism, but his energy and his breaking the rules concept of Kirk. So he's a nice hybrid of Captain Kirk.
Why does he have an accent again?
They say they actually recon it. They spent 1 year in London, and the accent just took. And they did that is because they want, if it's Picard's kid, he's got to talk like Picard. Yeah. Otherwise, it just sucks, right? Like, I think it just kind of like, it just isn't fun. So I think that they did it that way. It was great. I think that that they you know, like he went to, and even the thing I loved the last season of Picard where technically he should have a French accent, but because of things that happened, the Picard family lived in England for so long that they all have the English accents, which was kind of a funny thing. I love the way that they fixed a lot of things that people used to laugh about. Like even something as simple in the First Contact movie, which is the first true Next Generation cast movie, where Picard kind of senses the Borg. And for years, people have talked about, well, why would he sense that? Why would he sense that? And they address it with the fact that the Borg basically, not only did they assimilate him, but they also planted like a genetic thing in him too, which is used, of course, to yada yada spoilers, to what the plan is of the Borg and the changelings all along. Mm-hmm. And that's done really well too. Most of us who are Star Trek fans on social media were not anticipating that it was going to be a Borg. Some people did, but a lot of people really thought it was going to be more power wraith stuff. That the Foundation, that the Dominion changelings were working with the power wraiths because of the red eyes. The red eyes was a great misdirect because the power wraiths, there was a lot of red eye stuff when the power wraiths would take people over on Deep Space Nine and they'd have red eyes. I think on purpose that was a misdirect. Probably, I think they just was a great directorial choice to trick the audience because what they did was better than any fan theory that came out.
Maybe the power wraiths were the Borg all along.
No, they're gods. They're disgraced gods. They're like gods that were thrown out of the temple, so to speak.
Yeah.
So that was really good. The way they recon Data, that whole thing with Data was really good. Now Brent Spiner can just be himself and just put on some white skin makeup and not have to worry about how old he looks. A lot of people were worried at first when they were bringing back Data that it wouldn't make any sense. But I thought the way they did it was. Didn't you think it was great the way they did it? In terms of how they did Data, because obviously the Data character died.
It was interesting, yeah.
And we really should have Data back, but now we get this kind of like
they didn't just bring Data back and have him just be like, oh, it's Data, like it's a robot again or an android. Like they at least like they decided like, okay, if we're gonna bring Data back, we're gonna fully realize like the want of that character. Like
they actually let him achieve it almost.
And he achieves a level of it on. Well, he's in a Picard synthetic body, like the same one that Picard gets at the end of season 1, essentially. Right. And so that's you get Data badge, you get Brent Spiner. He doesn't have to get like aged down. He doesn't have to be like makeup up. He just gets to be himself. He gets to kind of
and have emotions
and
now.
And he gets to be like something that every Star Trek fan thought like they probably never would have ever seen, which is like Data become not human, but like
as close to human as he could possibly become.
Like yes.
And then they had a lot of fun with that. They had a lot of fun with it.
Yeah, they had a lot of fun with it. Like it made like everyone else emotional just to see that because it's something that all of them had always wanted for Data as well.
What was very cool was there's a lot of moments when Data got his emotion chip in Generations and even other films where they played off that concept of, as an audience, he would have the emotions that the people in the audience would have. Mm-hmm. Like at the end of Generations when he finds his cat and he's got the emotion chip and he starts crying and he's like, but I'm sad, but I'm happy. And then they kind of took those concepts and then even into this thing where like there's a great moment where he's got a gut now. He trust my gut, I can do this. And allows the actor to be passionate, which he was never allowed to do. And then even he has the funny ass line where he's like, Data, try to be a little bit more optimistic. And he's like, I hope we die quickly. And it was great. Like everybody lost their marbles
because
say
a lot of lines that he like physically couldn't say as Data because it wasn't in his like programming or whatever.
And that's why they would allow him to have like lore and they would allow him to kind of play other characters.
Yeah, for more variety,
and now all the other Soons are dead. There's no one here. There's like Lore's gone, B whatever's gone, his father's gone, or what. All those people are gone. There's nobody left. He's the only version of that he ever has to play of that character ever again.
Yeah.
It'll be interesting if they have him find his daughter, whatever that girl was from the first season.
That or not,
if they ever kind of address that, that'd be
I was
kind of
surprised
fun.
that nothing came up with that at all.
That would be the only criticism I saw online, that people said they didn't address what happened with Picard and his Romulan girlfriend back at the vineyard, and they don't address what happened to like the thing. And you, I didn't even remember this. You brought up that one really cool Romulan guy that's in Starfleet. Where's he?
I mean, to be
and
fair,
he has huge ties to Rafi.
He's probably just in like Starfleet somewhere, but that's what I'm saying. Like, but let's want to talk about the.
We're gonna get him back
now.
We're getting that dude back.
You think we're gonna get Romulan guy back?
Yeah, we're getting that guy.
You think he's gonna be on the?
He's gonna be the Worf if they.
You think so?
I think so.
You are that.
Once you said
that, like that guy.
Oh, I love that dude.
Do like the fans like that guy a lot though.
I think that if they write him right,
had a Romulan in Starfleet, right?
That's why he's the new Worf.
Yeah, that's cool. Yeah. And especially, that could work. I did say that they should bring him in.
So obviously, I'm way too excited about.
Yeah,
this.
we're skipping ahead a little bit, but
it's just.
Want to talk about the end? I guess.
Let's get right to the last 2 episodes, because they yada yada yada. They get the plot done. They kill most of the bad guys.
I don't think they need to talk about the plot too, because again, I don't think everyone here is like listening.
Just watch it, because if you like Star Trek. You said this.
Sci-fi in general.
Okay, one of the things they did really well on this season was they were on a Federation ship.
Yeah, the first 5 episodes is kind of like just a normal like Star Trek arc. It's not even a deep space reunion.
Yes.
It's just like it has some deep space elements and characters. Like there's only 4 deep space characters at that point. It's Riker.
Right.
There's
You mean Deep Space?
Not Deep Space. Next Gen. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like Next Generation. You have Picard, Riker. You get Worf. Not even like
Worf's awesome.
And he's in his own little corner for those first couple episodes as well with Rafi.
With Rafi, which was very smart.
And then you have and then Crusher. And then Crusher, and then their son. But then everyone else comes in the later episodes.
The evolution of what they did with Worf was great.
I thought it was paced well. Like it slowly, it slowly shifted from, and you had like all these other characters, and we were like even saying like these characters, and like some of the. Say what you want about Picard, but I think the characters have always been pretty good. Like on the other seasons, like in the early, I think like story wise and villain wise, you maybe could have had some issues.
Sure,
but especially like I think the doc, like Girardi, I think her name was right, the who became the Borg person. Like everyone, did people like her?
Yes and no.
Yes,
it was split.
Like I didn't mind her. Especially, I didn't mind her, especially with the Borg stuff once that started.
Her second season was better than her first season.
Yeah, I agree with that a lot, actually. But people liked Rios, right?
Yeah, Rios was great.
Rios was cool. Like
Rios and Shaw were 2 great characters that we'll never see again.
Yeah, I think Data's daughter was fine for the most part.
I think they decided they didn't need her.
It was more her story that was bad than than the actual acting or the acting.
And that was a lot of criticism of the first season, but I don't want to focus on the first season because it's over. They learned their mistakes. They got a new showrunner. They got a new showrunner. And that was what the difference was, a better writer who really understood the Star Trek universe.
And I think when you got to the end of the episode, you figured out like why like the couple of characters they decided to like introduce like the daughter and son like were so good. And like because they put a lot of time and effort into making them good because we're going to see them again.
So if you're a Star Trek fan, there's so many great fan service moments throughout the season. We get a Ferengi, which is a really cool, nice, modern up. The costuming, the makeup looked incredible.
Yeah, that was good.
We get to see Worf, Michael Dorn yield a new weapon, this kind of evolved, kind of pacifist Klingon, which is the best way to describe it, a warrior for peace, which is just great because there wouldn't be like a pacifist Klingon. No. This is as close to a pacifist, and he's becoming the Daha Master. You just know that they're setting up that if we ever see Worf again, eventually he will be the Daha Master. He will have achieved that level of non-political, stuff that Worf deserves.
What the hell is explain that? Actually?
It's basically he's just like kind of like a spiritual leader for Klingons.
Oh, okay, like you have that much experience and that much insight that you just like kind of collectively like eventually you earn that like.
No, it's an actual specific title. There's only one Daha Master.
Oh, okay.
Like, there are lots of Daha Masters, but excuse me, there's one main Daha Master, and one of the old Klingons from the original television series that they brought back on Deep Space Nine was the Daha Master. Mm-hmm. So like they kind of are. They're going to turn Worf into something. We will see it in the years that we have left with Michael Dorn playing Worf.
Yeah, I imagine so. He wants to play the character more.
He would play it every day if he could. Yeah. The interesting thing about Michael Dorn is outside of like, your shows like your main TV shows like SVU and stuff like that, Michael Dorn has played Worf as a character more than just about any other actor in the history of television because he's been on multiple series.
Well, he has 6 seasons of Next Gen,
7 seasons of Next Generation, 4 seasons of Deep Space Nine,
plus movies,
and now this season of plus movies
and
plus
10,
this,
and then 10 episodes. This or 9 episodes.
Whatever he was in for
this.
So they definitely, and I think we'll see Worf again. I think just based on there's a lot of cool stuff. We find out that Worf was captain of the Enterprise E after Picard and broke it. We don't know why but they made it canon because everybody wanted a Captain Worf TV show. Yeah. So they kind of threw that in. It's like, well, he did get it. You missed it. You missed it. He destroyed the ship, which I totally agree because he would screw it up. Not screw it up, but he would go all Klingon in an episode and say well, it's just got to wreck the ship. He probably flew it into an asteroid or something just to piss people off.
Into another ship.
It's really cool. Everybody got really cool moments. There was that great episode where Riker uses their own technique against him. He uses the tractor beam and throws an asteroid at the bad guys. Cool, There's so many.
That goes into Riker is supposed to be a tactical
warrior. He's got the Riker maneuvers and all that stuff that we hear about. So many good things. The character development between Shaw and 7 of 9 were great.
That was good too. That, and that was a very much on the side thing as well.
Because he wouldn't call her 7 of 9. He kept calling her Commander Hansen. He making her use her human name, and she never went by Commander Hansen.
And that was so good because that relationship and their respect that needs to grow over the course of the show needs to work so that the final scene where because that character the captain gets killed during the towards the end,
which is heartbreaking.
And because he was really character. Good. People liked him
because he was like us. Oh, what do you mean? I'm not doing that.
Yeah,
that's a terrible idea.
He's exasperated. He's been dragged around by the old guys.
Of course we're going to go to Earth and get attacked.
Yeah,
of course. Why not? Why shouldn't we? It's great. He doesn't want to do it. But when he's dying, he says, No. I'm not the captain anymore. This is your ship, 7 of 9. He calls her 7 of 9. Mm-hmm. And then he proceeds to die. And then he also makes sure that we'll get to that at the very end, the last final. We'll discuss that.
Yeah.
So Geordi's running the Fleet Museum now, so we have a great episode where we get to see the ships. I mean, for me, there's a scene when they're at this Fleet Museum and it's all the ships outside the space dock, and we see the Stargazer, we see Voyager, but for me, we see the Defiant, and it's not even the original Defiant because the original Defiant. This is the second Defiant. It's this ship that was.
Did Worf pointed out or what?
What?
The Worf point?
No. We just see it. There's a great scene where we don't see it right away. There's a scene where Jack Crusher comes onto the bridge and he's sitting with 7, and they're just looking at the ships. Yeah. And the guy knows all the ships because he just he's like, you can't.
Yeah,
who doesn't like? He loves the ships.
Says he's like just because I don't like Starfleet doesn't mean I don't like the hardware, which is like me. My thing for the military because I know all sorts of shit.
So we get a great shot of the Enterprise. We get a great shot of the Defiant. We get a great shot of Voyager, and she talks about that was her first home. So there's a lot of cool stuff there, and that creates that scene is an important scene. It's not just fan stuff; it's also these two characters connecting, which leads to other.
There's a lot of that, and there's if you look back at the season and as you see this, we keep alluding to this.
Yeah.
But if you, especially those first 5 episodes, especially. Before it goes very much heavy into the Deep Space reunion which I think they should.
The Next Generation. Next Generation.
I don't know. Yeah, you know what I mean.
Yeah, I know what you mean.
The Next Gen reunion, which it should have by the time it got to the second half of the season, it should have been more focused.
I thought the way they did it was great.
Beginning half though, you get a lot of great character interactions between 7 of 9 and Picard's son, 7 of 9 and Geordi's daughter, who's the pilot.
Yep.
Geordi's daughter and Picard's son, and then also 7 of 9 and Geordi's daughter.
And even some little stuff with the new characters that are on the Titan.
Yeah,
I like those. I like the other guy. I think he's got the ridges on his nose, so I think he's Bajoran. Mm-hmm. There's the girl with the weird marks. I don't know I don't think they've identified what alien version what she's going to be. I liked all of that. I don't know. I thought that they did a lot of cool things with that. Finally, when they finally leave the Fleet Museum. We see the Klingon bird of prey that Captain Kirk stole in Star Trek 3.
Yeah.
That crashed into the San Francisco Bay. They make that reference.
Yeah, they go and get it out.
They talk about how they can't use the Enterprise E already. We already talked about that. They steal the cloaking device from that bird of prey, and the Titan cloaks using a literally
Klingon, yeah.
like a Klingon cloaking device that literally in canon is over 100 years old, which is great. Like, and it sounds, and they use the sound effect from Star Trek 4. Like, they use 3 and 4. They use the Klingon sound effect, special effect. They bring back Marjorie Roddenberry, who was Nurse Chapel. She was, she was also a regular character. She was Deanna Troy's mother a bunch of times, and she was also the computer voice for Next Generation and the original TV series. We hear her voice again when they're on the Enterprise D, and this was the genius moment of the show. They talk about that Geordi has a project, and when everything happens and they need a ship, I mean, yes, it's ridiculous, and it's too, but nobody cares because that's what you want. You want them to go and get the Enterprise D.
They built a good reason into it. They built a good reason why it was only that ship into it, too. Like, I mean, it was realistic. Geordi was the fleet commander. He's been working on it as his own pet project, essentially, for years. Like, it seems like he's been working on it for 20 years, he said.
Yes.
So it's almost like he's been putting, like, more work into this and more time than, like, anything else.
Yes.
Like, because it was destroyed.
Yes. Like, and he was the chief engineer of that ship. Yeah, so, that was his ship. So, like, if ever anybody, like Scotty, if he could have salvaged the Enterprise, he would rebuild it if he was the fleet guy. So he had been working on. So for the people like, wait a second, in Generations, the Enterprise blew up. They took it perfectly. Because of the Prime Directive, they didn't want that solar system that was pre-warp, so they don't know about aliens. They had to get the saucer section off of Viridian 3 where Captain Kirk dies, which is why Captain Kirk's body is not on Viridian 3. They can't leave an alien body on a planet. He's in the Daystrom thing where Captain Kirk's body's there, as well as Captain Picard's, as well as an attack dribble and all these other goofy things that they had there. The Genesis weapon. That was a great episode, too.
Yes, well, they've got Captain Kirk's body.
Well, because Captain Kirk died and he was on Viridian 3. And so for whatever reason, because he was in the Nexus in Generations, they probably want to see how his body was affected being in the Nexus. That's probably would be the sci-fi yada yada version of. Plus, it's a cool Easter egg because you can't leave his body in Viridian 3 because there's a pre-warp society there.
Bury him?
So they get the saucer section is the only part that's really the Enterprise D. They say that the rest of the ship is from another the Syracuse, another one of the Excelsior or not Excelsior or whatever that Galaxy class. Yeah, something like that. For my nerdness that I know the names of all the classes of ships, but and they get on it and they rebuilt. The Enterprise D set,
the bridge,
exactly as it was. A lot of nostalgia there. They make a joke about the size of it versus the size of the sets now. They make a joke about the carpet. They really did a nice job doing all of that. And then they really did a great job using the Enterprise, the Star Trek Next Generation theme and made it super astromatic. And that's something I'll mention right now before we get into the finale and then the Easter eggs, was that they redid the composers. They got rid of composers from the first 2 seasons, and there was nothing wrong with the music, but they got like those guys that are on YouTube and, like that do fan versions of themes. So they'll take video games and they'll orchestrate the stuff. And so they found these 2 guys that do, and these guys knew all the music from all the Star Trek series is incorporated into this, whether it's Deep Space Nine, whether it's Voyager, whether it's the movie Generations, whether it's the feelings that you hear during Star Trek 2 and Star Trek 3. They probably couldn't get the rights for that, but they use a lot of that, like when the Enterprise is leaving space dock, it reminds you of some of the other movies. They really understood the music, which I think we talked about on Mandalorian. Maybe the music wasn't as good as it could have been. We get to the last episode, and basically they're all together, and it's just great. Mm-hmm. And it's you were sitting there watching it with me, and like they all do the things that they do for their friends, which is a theme. Is like Riker's like, I gotta go get him. Like if you stay.
I've seen some of like Next Gen, but you've just with like seeing the characters like kind of reactions to being like united with one another, and then with like their actual like camaraderie, like within like the scenes with one another, you're able to very much connect quickly to them. You're able to like feel the emotion between the characters and the history and like all that. And then it comes across. So like even when they all have to go off and like do the mission, like some of them have to stay on the ship, some of them have to beam down to go get Picard's son. Like, and there's tension. Like he says goodbye. Like you might like that might be it. Like he might not come back. Like, and the emotions there, it hits like even to people that like haven't like been with these characters for nearly as long, I think.
Yeah.
So, and I think that's one because like all these actors are very close and friends with one another.
Yeah.
Like they're all close, like literally.
I mean, like that's not to be understated. Like these guys have maintained their friendship for like 30 years.
Yeah, they've been going to conventions and stuff.
They
years.
do a lot
like,
of conventions together
and stuff too. So.
Like I know that LeVar Burton and Brent Spiner are very close friends. They were best friends on the show, and they do a lot. And obviously that transcends into the quality of the show. Like when you're going to all these events together and you see each other a lot, I think they just have maintained their friendships. Which is there's a lot of times where like there's things where like Michael
and a lot
Dorn's,
of their careers piggyback off of this show too. So and I think a lot of them have appreciated that like as well. So
I mean they go through all the Save the Universe stuff, and it's just great. And the Borg stuff, they bring back like an actress, the voice actress, the last Borg queen. But then they have that tremendous scene where Picard finally goes off and I have to be a dad now. I can't be your captain anymore. I have to be a father. And I really thought that worked well when he went in there to save his son.
I agree, yeah.
And then he literally tried to get away from the collective, and then he actually puts himself purposely back into the collective to save his child.
For years. It was like he had like adverse reactions, obviously, to like anything Borg for obviously a long time.
Yeah.
So then to obviously like willingly plug himself into the same thing that he escaped, like with all the trauma and stuff, then like he's obviously like a sacrifice, and that's like the big step to like show to your son, and then obviously to like and then obviously to reach him once we were in the system. Right. So.
There's some really cool stuff with when we had because a lot of the away missions back on the original series would be Riker and Worf. So we kind of got that last away mission together with them, which was a lot of fun. And I really liked Worf's got that new weapon. I forget what they call it, and it's really Riker goes to pick it up, and he did a great job making it feel like, why is this so heavy? Like
I didn't know this would be so heavy.
This would be so heavy, which is really funny. And then it's like. You take the phaser out of the handle, and he's like,
Solo,
like you had a phaser all along. Why did you have? It's like, well, swords are more fun. Like it is just kind of great. Like even
it's like when Han picks up like the bowcaster.
Like I like this.
I like this.
I like
thing,
this.
Which is so stupid that Han's never fired the bowcaster in like 40 years. But
again, it's fun, and it's even in the darkest moments of Star Trek, they always kept the humor going. Because even when they realized they got to go and find Picard, Worf has that great line. He's like, he had two great lines in this episode. Like, the one where he talks about there's two things Klingons never admit that they know. That was a great line. That's very cheerful. But also when he says, for a moment, I thought we're actually going to live, make it through the day. But then he says the last
for a moment,
line.
I was afraid we might live.
Yeah, I was afraid we might actually survive the day.
We may actually survive
this. It's just so good because they didn't get so wrapped up in the drama.
And that's very much like Riker and like Picard's. That's what Riker and his relationship were always, where they were kind of like not. They like each other, but they're always like a little bit at each other.
Riker would always just pull shit on Worf.
Yeah.
Like pranks and stuff just to mess with him.
A little bit not antagonistic, but like...
No, definitely antagonistic.
Oh, okay.
Like
so
totally,
like,
with a smile.
They would annoy each other purposely.
He would annoy Worf on purpose because he knew he could.
It was entertaining.
Because he was just entertaining himself. And you're like even the one time where it's Worf's like birthday or something and he doesn't like surprise parties and Riker's throwing him a surprise party and he's like, I know you're doing a surprise party. Like, and it's like, why would I do that? He goes, because you would. Like, it's just, and like the fact that they, even in Deep Space Nine, they really continue this like Worf's weird lack of sense of humor. Like there's even one time when he was in that show and he was with his wife Jadzia and she's like, he goes, that was a joke. I got it. It wasn't funny, but I was a joke. Like, so they did so well with Michael Dorn being such a good actor. Yeah. I mean everything.
He's able to be the badass and be like comedic relief at the same time, which is hard.
I mean,
so,
we got Data.
Hard,
Data got to be emotional. Troy gets to save everybody using her powers. We get to see see a lot of what Dr. Crusher, which sometimes never got to do a lot. Everybody got their moment.
The third most time.
Yes, everybody got their moment. Like Jordy got his moment when he figured out how to get the cloaking device to work. Like everybody got their moment, which was what we wanted, which maybe we didn't get in Nemesis the last time we saw all these people together. And I think that was kind of like, this is such a better ending because obviously they saved the day. And we kind of see what happens. We're going to get to the future stuff, but we get that great scene where we're all together in a bar. It's a year later, and they're in Guinan's bar, and then they play cards one more time, and they're literally in the same positions, and it's such a great scene. And for people like me that have watched the show since 1987 or 88, whenever it came out, these are like friends that you've hung out with time and time again, rewatching episodes, rewatching movies, and this is it. This is the last time I'm going to see these tremendous characters together. We might see them individually, but we're never going to get this moment again. And for me, it's super, super, super emotional. And even though Next Generation is my, I love the show. Deep Space Nine's still my favorite, but there's just something different about, because this was the show where Star Trek really found itself after the next, outside of the movies and stuff. And then they go into what's going on next.
Which I really liked.
The Titan, which was Riker's ship, is rechristened the Enterprise G
in honor of the
crew.
Yeah.
There's a great scene where Captain Shaw, we see a video.
Picard gets to see the name on it, and he gets emotional.
He gets very emotional about it, and the son says names mean something.
Is that from earlier in the season?
No. Earlier in that episode, like when Jack is talking about how he was able to get through the academy in a year, he was like, I think nepotism has something to do about it. He's like, no, names don't mean that much. Picard says names don't mean that much. And then they see the ship, and Jack says names do mean something. He's like, you can be proud of what you've accomplished. Like, that's a great scene. Yeah. And it's the Enterprise G, which ironically is the 7th letter of the alphabet. And who's the captain of the ship?
7 of 9.
7 of 9. And we saw that great episode.
It was a great little, and you can explain the
Shaw does his report
evaluation,
and his evaluation, and it's just great. It's such a great scene, and he's
talking about all the crew, and then he finally gets to 7 of 9, and he's like, and he starts off with like what she doesn't do essentially, but she's like, but she's loyal, and she's this and she's that, everything all the fans already know. And he's like, and goddamn it, blah blah blah, and something about her story is gonna be bigger than like anyone's.
He talks about the book. He says, the book is boring. I followed the book, and the book is boring. The book she's gonna write is gonna be great, and she breaks the rules, and those rules were probably broken already. Yeah. So it's an acknowledgement that he's at the end of
some of the hard ass stuff that he was saying.
He's at the end of his time.
Wrong.
He's at the end of his time, and we're assuming that whole recording got done before. He says it was before.
I think that was like
it was before Picard got on the ship.
I don't know if it was. I don't actually know. I thought it was
because he references because Admiral Tuvok, which was a nice nod.
That was a nice little
because he was very close with her on. That was the only other Voyager character we saw, which was good.
Was that guy from Voyager? I recognized that character, but I didn't know he was from Voyager.
He was quite often like.
Was he on the ship too?
Yeah, he was on the ship too. He was like in many ways intellectually her equal, and so they had a lot of similarities. Being like,
so that was a deeper scene than I imagined it being, because he literally knew that character as well. Okay.
Yes, they were, and he literally helped her several times.
He tried to resign too.
Yeah,
and he's like denied. Resignation denied. Captain.
Denied. Captain. Captain. Like, and then so she's Captain 7, and then we see her on.
She's a very good actress.
Jerry Ryan is a true Star Trek fan. Like Jerry Ryan,
no, I know that.
She's always been like she's always gone to the convention. She's even come out in costume. Yeah, like she actually put her costume on a couple times for conventions a few years ago. She's just tremendous, and I think that they're very
smart.
Worf
show, it seems like, but a 7 of 9 show. All right, I'll take it. It's like
everybody wants a Worf show, but I think we're not getting it. I think Jerry Ryan's a little bit younger. So we're getting a 7 show. We're bringing Rafi in, and then we see that scene where they're on the new.
We got four like the 4 characters we were talking about. We got what's it called?
The characters already mentioned.
Captain 7.
Geordi, commanding
Geordi's daughter.
Commander's her former girlfriend. Is Rafi. We don't know if that's going to continue or not, which they probably shouldn't if they're the person's, there's going to have to break that off.
Chain of command.
Chain of command screws that up. They got it's funny because Jack thinks Jack's kind of funny when he comes in. He's like, well, what do you want me to be? Comms? I could be weapons. I could be science. She's like, no, you're going to sit here and be my assistant because he's only an ensign, which is cool. Yeah. And I like the yada yada that because it's definitely.
But it's also like she's going to put him next to him.
Those
it's
three
Picard's
characters,
kid and she sees potential in
if
him.
They're everybody, because they've been talking, they announced 3 weeks ago.
He'll end up being high up in the ship.
We announced 3 weeks ago that they're doing a Section 31 movie with what's her face who just won the Oscar. Mm-hmm. What's the actress?
I'm blanking on the name.
From Everything Everywhere All at Once. She is supposed to be. She's from Discovery, and they're giving her was supposed to be a show, but I think now it's becoming a movie. Then there was talk that they announced that they're doing an Academy show. I think that that's a misdirect, and I think that this show, Michelle Yeoh. I think that this show is going to be the Academy show because Jack's just out of the Academy. Rafi was a teacher at the Academy, and all these other people are right out of the Academy. So I think they're just, I really hope that they're going to say, this is the show we were actually talking about.
It was just in case the casting stuff was starting to get leaked or anything.
They don't want
that they would be able to say it's Academy show, and it's not
they were trying to protect
Secret
this.
Enterprise show.
Yeah, the Secret Enterprise. Because now we're going to get a true...
The Next Gen Enterprise show.
Yeah, this is the next generation, and there's enough... I always wanted...
the next generation.
I wanted the Worf show, and I wanted Cisco's kid, the unborn child, not Jake, the one that's in his wife's, that hasn't been born yet, at the end of Deep Space Nine to be in the Academy. I don't think we even know which gender that child was supposed to be.
No, I don't think they ever say that.
So my thing would have been, but this is almost the same thing. Instead of Worf, we're getting 7. We're getting Picard's kid instead of Cisco's kid. We're getting Geordi's daughter as the helmsman, and we might even get Geordi's other daughter, who's his actual real daughter, as an engineer for all we know. And we have the ability now, because timeline-wise, we can bring in any legacy characters that we want, and that's what I think the show is going to be called. I think the show, when it's announced, is going to be called Star Trek Legacy, because that's a big thing within the fan base. It's going to be called Star Trek Legacy, and we will get a spattering of characters coming and going. So we'll get O'Brien, we'll get Cisco, we'll get Janeway.
And there's a few characters from that are been in from Picard that obviously there's the 4 that we just mentioned, but there's a couple from previous seasons that maybe could get a role,
Yeah. Well, there's 2 things that. Well, what do you think? What do you mean by that?
We were walking in the car and we said Cisco's kid maybe could fit in here. If you found a place for him, only if you have a story for them.
Yes.
It would be my thing. But so that could go. You have the Romulan guy from earlier seasons.
The first Romulan in Starfleet.
Yeah, who's the first Romulan, who was very close to Rafi's character.
And I could see her bringing him on as kind of her father figure.
You know what I mean?
Yes,
getting him
her
transferred
mother
over.
Figure, yes.
So that would give Rafi a connection.
And he would be the new Worf. He'd be the new badass.
Yeah, exactly.
He'd be the new badass on the ship. Because you need the badass guy.
And I think he was, and his personality was good too, because he was pretty humble and stuff as well, which was kind of interesting and he was from a secret camp of Romulans, because he had the weird fight style and swords and shit. So
which
ninja,
is very
ninja
cool.
stuff.
Yeah.
So and that was a little bit different for Star Trek as well.
Well, it's no different than the kind of the stuff they came up with.
I guess
Worf
they've seen
with his
different
weapons,
other Romulans
because they do a lot of
so.
stuff with Worf. I mean, Worf does his own choreography. Learn specific choreography for the Bat'leth fights and all that stuff.
But either way, there is other guys even Riker, as a younger-ish daughter that maybe eventually would get to be in Starfleet.
Yeah, I hope they don't do all of it.
No, they shouldn't do all. But you have options though.
I don't want Star Wars. I don't want Star Trek kids.
No, I know what you mean.
Star Trek babies.
I'm saying you have a decent number of those characters that are of around that age, that have been introduced recently that are decently well liked.
And outside of now 7,
not to mention you're going to hire more people, I assume, cast more people.
Besides 7, Tuvok, and Janeway, we haven't seen anybody from Voyager. I think we saw a different version of the Doctor. Maybe in something, but we haven't seen them on screen. We've seen them in animation and shit like that. But I think that because of her ties to Voyager, I'm sure that they'll work in either the holographic Doctor or Harry Kim or somebody. I don't think it'll be every episode. I think it'll be occasionally. And again, this is all assuming that they're doing this show. Yeah. I think that this was a great.
There's a post-credit scene. Come on.
They do. So they do 2 cool things. We see the ship.
There's 2 things that indicate
we see the coming. We see the ship, and they really go into that lore of what does the captain say when they go into warp. Mm-hmm. Kirk's got a couple cool ones. he never says, warp 5, whatever. But he's got a couple cool lines where he said, like, straight on, second star to the right, straight on the morning. Let's see what she's got. Things like that, those types of things where they make fun of that. Picard obviously says engage, you make it so, And then they even make a joke of that in the trailer with, for, what Spock's supposed to say. And he's like, I want the ship to go now, which is funny, and they all laugh at him. They were doing a great thing where Seven was going to say it, and it goes blank before she gets a chance to say it. And then we get to the edit scene where Jackson is in his quarters. He takes out a picture of Patrick Stewart and Gates McFadden at a movie premiere. Them wearing tuxedos, and he's wearing a tuxedo. It's not a Star Trek picture. It's a picture that I've seen online on fan sites of them at a movie premiere. Not a Star Trek picture. And he's got a model of the Enterprise D. And sure enough, there he is. It's Q. Mm-hmm. And he says, like, wait a second, I thought you were dead. He's like, oh, you stupid humans.
You think time works
like that.
You
guys think linearly. You guys think so linearly. And he's like, but you said that my dad's trial was over. He's like, yeah, but yours has just begun. And it's like, oh,
you're going to fuck with his kid
you
for
fuckers.
For now.
And they were like, and I'm not a Q fan. I thought they overdid Q.
Like back in the day?
But now it's cool, now it's like Q. Give me, sure, why not? So if we don't get a series, people are going to freaking riot,
Well, and the ratings went up as the show went along, so I think they've probably secured themselves one. So, and people have been asking for that Enterprise. Like, Stranger Worlds is kind of that, but it's not like the next generation in the timeline. You know what I mean? Yeah. Like, it's not moving forward. It's still a little bit of a step back, even if it is a Enterprise show. And we like Stranger Worlds. Like, it's the best reviewed Star Trek show of all time, actually.
Sure.
Theoretically, but
of the new stuff.
Theoretically, even more than anything on the websites and stuff. You can't really compare it to stuff that came out when the websites didn't exist. Much,
you can't. You can't talk about a show that's been
because the ratings are there's more ratings compared to last and yada yada yada. But
Of all the new shows, Strange New Worlds was, I think, the most popular until now. I think Picard eclipsed it.
Really?
Especially this season.
Okay.
Because I think the numbers for the last 2 episodes, now everybody's going back and rewatching this season.
I mean, Strange New Worlds had really good numbers, if I remember correctly.
Yeah. And obviously I think we got 2 more seasons of that. Obviously, we have the animated shows, which are popular. Not with me, but they're popular. Yeah. And that was the final point that I want to make as we wrap up. We got a couple minutes. I just think that Paramount... everybody said about 2 years ago or whatever it was when CBS Viacom remerged and CBS All Access or whatever it was called became Paramount. Mm-hmm. Everybody said, first of all, they got a lot of great properties. You got the Jack Ryan series and you got Yellowstone and you got all these other things, but they own Star Trek. And they really have gone all in that Star Trek is their big property. And since the change... You can see the improvements that they're doing.
It's still a little niche. The Star Trek is interesting because it is niche, in the kind of the overall pop culture. But there is but the community is that is Star Trek fans is devoted. It's not the biggest in the world, but there's a decent number of them that of a lot of different ages that exist.
In terms of fandoms, it's a lot larger than people realize. Mm-hmm. A lot of people were disenfranchised over the last few years,
and there wasn't a lot going on for a very long time.
And there wasn't a lot going on. So the fact that they're putting it back together, and there's when I go on the Twitter and all those things, mm-hmm. There's no hate for Picard. There's complaints or whatever. There's always those people.
Yeah, obviously.
But they have really neutralized with the last 2 series. A lot of that anti you got too political or you did too this or you call them shit libs or whatever. They didn't they didn't get caught up in that shit. Mm-hmm. They really my argument for you is right now in terms of fandoms, I think when fandoms can be really toxic, because we talk about this all the time, I think right now Paramount is doing a better job with Star Trek than any of the other fandoms are doing with their crowds right now.
I would say of how of on streaming, you mean?
I think just in general in terms of reception to their shows. People are receiving their shows
of the bigger niche
niche,
of the bigger properties that are owned by
Marvel, Star Wars, things like that.
I would say I mean, what's the what's the thing that's like bad that's most recent from Star Trek?
DC. Oh, the last thing that's bad.
Yeah, it's
well, not
bad.
everybody dislikes Discovery,
but that's like one.
But
like,
but
would be
but the
like,
hate for Discovery though is now going back to
hate.
earlier seasons.
Yeah.
It's going back to earlier seasons. Most people have liked the last 2 seasons of Discovery.
So it's just the first 2 people don't like.
It's the first 2 that folks felt they were a little bit too much. They were too sensitive.
Oh, okay.
There's like the level of, and it wasn't Star Trek-y enough.
No.
I mean, they smartened up when they brought in the Captain Pike stuff, and then when they moved the ship into 800 years into the future, the show got much, much better.
Yeah, because it had to do its own thing, actually.
Yeah.
So.
I thought that a couple of those, that first season there dragged when they had like the weird thing where nobody had warp drive and all that stuff.
Yeah.
They did fix it, but then this last season was significantly better. They did a lot of stuff with like the Vulcan Romulan mergers and everything. Like it's not my favorite, but I didn't hate it and I liked it enough that I watched it. I mean, and I guess, but then now they went all in with what they did with, Strange New Worlds.
I feel weird comparing like Star Trek to some of the other like a little bit larger stuff, but yes, in terms of like a property that's like being actually handled well for the most part by like the people putting it out, then like Paramount's not doing a bad job with Star Trek at all. Like not a comparison to like Marvel at the moment, who can't seem to like, but we're having all sorts of issues. Star Wars is obviously having like its variety of issues that it always has. DC, God knows what the fuck is going on over there. But I think like Star Trek can be considered a healthier brand at the moment, at least in terms of like where it is with like their fandom. I'm sure there's like a corner that's fucking mad about everything, but I think that's everything.
But I just think that percentage is much smaller in the Star Trek universe right now.
They've
done a better job, and they found a great way with Picard and even with Strange New Worlds of doing the Easter eggs or whatever you want to call it, but at the same time making it plot related and making it work. So you get that nice mix of fan service, but also good story.
Yeah, agreed.
And I think both shows are very Star Trek-y. Like that sometimes the one weird thing is what's his face, what's his name from South Park? Who has his show? Not South Park. What's his name?
What?
That stupid show that I can't stand that everybody liked that was like this was more Star Trek than Star Trek. What's his name?
The weird Star Trek?
The weird Star Trek thing with
the fake one?
Yeah,
like
the fake one.
Like the
McFadden.
parody show?
Yeah, McFadden. What's his name?
Space Fleet or something?
No, McFadden. What's his name?
McFarlane?
Seth MacFarlane show.
You're talking about the fake one where he was like, it was like the Orville or something?
Yeah, the Orville. And people are like, Orville, I consider, there's stupid ass Star Trek fans that consider Orville canon.
Isn't Orville a parody of Star Trek?
Well, it started as a parody and they evolved it into a light version, like a light lift version of Star Trek. It got more Star Trek as it went along.
That's weird.
And they've brought in a lot of like former Star Trek actors to be on the show. So they do a lot of fan casting
like, fun stuff then.
And I've tried to watch it and I don't dislike it, but I just don't feel like it's not a heavy lift. Yeah. And all the characters are kind of basically parodies, not parodies, they're even just rip-offs of Kirk and Spock and Worf and everything. There's nothing wrong with it, but it's like it's not Star Trek. And Star Trek still is, I mean, there's some people that are just dying on that hill, but that's that small percentage that are still mad about like 5 years ago with Discovery. And they don't even watch the new stuff because they've checked out. I can't even
imagine, like if you're a fucking Star Trek fan, it's like, bro, it's like you're going to be, like, I can understand, like, being annoyed by, like, something like that, but also, like, you are a Star Trek fan. Like, do you not understand, like, what the main point of your property was, like, in terms of like the messaging that it was sending. That's what it was. Like, that's what Star Trek's about, kind of. Yeah. At the end of the day.
No, and I agree, and I totally agree with that. And I feel like I don't hate ever on Discovery because of the story.
And they're supposed to.
I hate on Discovery. I hate on Discovery. Sometimes it wasn't Star Trek enough. Like I didn't even feel like it was Star Trek.
To be fair, like it would be unkeeping with Star Trek, and this is hard for like especially like a modern day, like 21st century corporation to do.
Right.
But like it's very hard for like the history of Star Trek is like, and this is for like most of its history, from what I can tell.
All of its history.
No, from like literally all of it. Like despite like weird ownership and capitalist ownership, whatever. Like they've managed to they push social issues and like whatever the social issue is of the time. So I think like during Discovery's time, like it was probably a little bit more like to the LGBT type stuff. They decided to point in. Although I think that it doesn't make sense in terms of like that within Star Trek fans' minds, like within Star Trek's universe, like this has probably already been like a thing that exists. Yes. Like so, like it shouldn't be so like emphasized
it
when
shouldn't
like
have been.
when like realistically timeline wise, this has already been like an accepted fact for like a long time. So
for sure,
I can see like the weirdness of it, but it's like it's a weird spot.
I think it's funny because
either way, like if you're gonna be mad because they're like doing gay representation or that sort of thing, then like you're watching Star Trek. Like I don't know why you're a fan of this franchise. Like,
and then Gene Roddenberry would have been against this, and I'm like, well, okay, I don't even know what that means. But like,
okay, cool. Gene Roddenberry, like you realize that like even if like Gene Roddenberry like was like not like for like one or two like social things that it was just because like he probably wasn't far enough along.
And
he still was born in like the like the fucking like the 1800s.
And I think Gene Roddenberry was a visionary on political stuff, maybe not so much on social stuff as much as he could have been, but he was for his time significantly far along. And I think the stuff that he did with storytelling, he didn't write all those stories.
Like the guy who created everything, they don't have to get the entire picture at all times. Like, and I'm sure Gene Roddenberry's had some like I'm just going to assume, like I don't know this for a fact, that he had some problematic beliefs. Like on top
he definitely did.
Like, which is funny because like Star Trek is like
because he was a man of his time, and his beliefs weren't problematic.
Star Trek's like the original.
They weren't problematic for the time. They're problematic now.
Which I can't even imagine. Like if do people use the word woke to describe Star Trek at any point?
They do sometimes.
Like those people.
A very small percentage. Okay, well, let's not want to employ that, but like, that's a little
in Minecraft.
No, but I would agree. There is a very, very small percentage that felt Star Trek was too woke.
Like, this is literally the original woke show.
You answer the question.
Like, is it not?
It's the original woke show.
Yeah, like
because it's like people not realizing that if you don't, it's like saying, I don't like Star Trek.
A bigoted Star Trek fan.
I don't like Star Trek because I don't like the fact that they are expressing, minorities. I'm like, okay, remember the black and white guys?
Yeah, like
and let this be your last battlefield. Remember when Kirk kissed a black woman? Remember when there's so many moments of Star Trek were all about that they did it in such a way and the censors and the networks didn't get it, but all the fans and everybody watching the show got what they were trying to do. I mean, that was the point of the show. Like that was the show was built on social issues.
Yeah, exactly.
And a lot of them were very specific to the time. And we've certainly talked about this.
It's just dumb as hell. Like if you're like a fucking bigoted
I don't
Star
even know.
Trek fan.
I don't even. I think those people. I don't even know if they even realize
you're
you're
not connecting the dots here. It's like you're nuts.
Well, on those fan pages, it's hilarious. I'm a Star Trek fan, but I've never watched Voyager.
I mean, that was with Star Wars too.
I'm like, let me. But there's so many people on the Star Trek fans sites that are like, but I've never watched Voyager, and I've never watched the original series, and I've never seen the movies. I'm like, you're not really a Star Trek fan.
That's what I was like saying. Like,
if you haven't seen the properties, then you don't know what I'm talking about.
Andor, and I'm only saying this because not that Andor is like the best representation of like Star Wars as a whole, but it like with Andor's politics and messaging that are behind that, and like what's considered like positive messaging, and like the positive message of like the rebellion in that movie, and like is not it's very like that's like it's hard to be like a certain level of like a certain political thinking and then like go and love Star Wars like if you don't understand the political thinking or agree with it that is set across in Andor. And there's plenty of people like if you like for the ideologies and stuff that are put across in Andor, there are many people like even within like our own country today that like just would watch Andor and like would think of like you know what I mean, because their own political beliefs like.
Okay.
But yeah, obviously that's always been a thing though of people, because so many like things in Hollywood, not that Hollywood is like at the forefront of like bringing equality to all. It's more that they just like put it in there for like, for viewership and stuff like that. Right. Expand to different communities and stuff like that. But either way, Hollywood is usually more ahead of like putting these type of things than others. Yeah. I don't know. It's just like. Yeah, I don't know. I've kind of lost my train of thought.
Well, I guess ultimately, like, we'll wrap it up with is that I think the state of the union of the Star Trek universe is really good. I'm excited. I wish we were eventually getting back to some movies. I just don't see what we're getting unless they do the Section 31 movie. But if they do the Section 31 movie, it's going to be it's going to be a Prime Video, like not Prime. It's going to be a Paramount
release.
Release. It's not going to be in theaters. Although, I mean. I don't need the movies. I think Star Trek works better as a series anyway. Yeah. If you really want to do something special, then take like they did with Picard and, show the last episode in some cinemas in 10 cities or something like that.
Yep.
I don't need the movies. Eventually it'd be nice to get back to some movies, but I'm fine right now if we just develop characters and just keep doing good shows.
I don't know if they would have it'd be worth it.
I agree.
I don't think they make money.
You're right, because
I don't think here's the thing. I think they
would need something really big.
I think they could make money in the way that the 2000 the
2009 movie
movies did. I think with that aesthetic, you can use trailers and stuff to make it a bit more sci-fi, and a bit more spectacle-y that it needs to get into theater. But I think in a 2023 theater, I don't know if those first 9 Star Trek movies, you know what I mean? I don't know if that type of Star Trek movie works as much in the theater.
I just don't think I just don't think it's necessary anymore, because they don't need that anymore. They can just release those movies on Prime, on Paramount, and it'll be fine, and they'll get the audience that they want. I also think that if they're doing, there is still all these rumors that. The only one that I still think is still viable is the fact that there is supposedly a fourth Chris Pine Star Trek, cast movie that's coming out, and there's a lot of rumors of what that movie's going to be and what the purpose of it is.
Yeah.
There's a lot of rumors that it's going to be a kind of fix the universe kind of thing, and kind of get rid of the Kelvin timeline. There's a lot of rumors. I don't like that concept. I don't have a problem with those movies.
Yeah, it's
they're over here. Yeah, they don't bother me. They're over here, and just leave them. They're entertaining. They, in many ways, brought a lot of interest back to the franchise. I don't know if we'd be getting the TV shows that we have now if those movies weren't relatively successful.
I like the first two. I like the first
and
two.
Actually, I like 1 and 3 more than I like the second one.
I don't even like the first two that much. I think there's moments in the second one that are fine. But the first one I think is enjoyable enough on its own while being a little bit too
1 and 3, in my mind, it's kind of funny. 1 is good because I like the casting is so good.
Yeah.
1's fine. I like 1.
I think that's what I'm saying. I still like the characters.
3, a lot of people like 3 more than 2 because 3 seems more like a Star Trek episode. 2, I like Benedict Cumberbatch,
the overall plot
but I didn't need Doctor Strange playing Khan.
But I just like the characters, because I also think Scotty is better in 2 though. Scotty tones himself down a little bit.
I think Scotty's better in 3.
No, he gets better each one. I'm saying.
I see what you mean.
He's not annoying in the first one, but he's a little bit too over the top.
In the first movie's a little too much. That was the biggest criticism.
Funny, though.
He was too funny, and that's a lot of people didn't like that.
Yeah. Whereas I think he kind of hits the right on the dot in Peg, right? That's his name.
Yeah. Well, because they kind of gave him a cool plot in the second episode where he kind of quits, and he goes off to do stuff, and then
I forgot about that.
He discovers that ridiculously sized ship that we always joke about. That's why did they have a Star Trek ship, a Star Wars ship in Star Trek? That ship's too fucking big. It's why has they got a Death Star? Basically that's what.
When that ship crashed into San Francisco, it's fucking just towering over the entire city.
Yeah, that's just kind of stupid. So, but they did their epic movies, and those movies are fine, and just leave them over there. But they're not in our universe, so that's fine. That's the advantage. Star Trek was smart to put those in a parallel universe, so to speak, or a whatever you want to call it, divergent universe or whatever, different timeline or whatever, and it's fine.
Put Leonard Nimoy on your screen to tell you to fuck off and not complain.
Anything that would have happened is not canon to the Captain Kirk generation that I grew up in. So just deal with it. If you don't like it, don't come to the movies. Go watch the old shows or watch Star Trek Continues on YouTube, which those things are fine too. The fan films. The fan shows are fine. Yeah. The fan shows, I have no problems. I've watched a couple of them, and they're fine. They're poorly acted, but so was the original series. So, except for the fact that you didn't know today that Leonard Nimoy won 2 Emmys for playing Mr. Spock, which is pretty damn good. So obviously the show recognizes what an actor Leonard Nimoy was. All right, you done?
Yeah, I'm done.
This was a lot of fun. Thank you. Sorry for you people that had to listen to me talk about Star Trek for so long, but this is my passionate thing. And I do really appreciate that Christian has appreciated my passion, has been willing to listen to these terrible conversations that he has to hear me talk about this shit way too much. But it goes both ways, right, sir?
Yeah.
So we really appreciate all.
You listen to my dumbass shit. So.
I don't think it's dumbass.
I think it is.
But I appreciate it because I appreciate your passion and that. I think that's again why we like our dynamic so much. I think people seem to like our dynamic is that we kind of have a lot of respect for each other's fandoms that we respect, and I've learned a lot from you, and hopefully, we kind of continue to do that. We appreciate everyone who watches and listens to our podcast, as well as some of the other ones. Anybody interested in starting a podcast and you're still listening, check us out on Emerge, at Emerge on any of your social medias or just go to MorenoMedia.com. Reach out to us, and we'll be back whenever with our next episode. Take care.